It was the taste of disinfectant that stuck with me most, faint, sour on the back of my tongue, mixing with stale coffee in my gut. The fluorescent lights painted everything the color of curdled milk, and beyond the glass doors, São Paulo gleamed in the late afternoon haze, oblivious as ever. I leaned against the chipped wall beside the elevator, arms folded across my chest, mother's voice slicing through the static of the hospital corridor. "What happens when you have nothing left, Julia?" She spoke softly, with practiced venom, always careful, words precise as fencing foils. "One day, even your pride won't keep you warm. We need you. Your father, he needs you now. You're the eldest." I stayed quiet, eyes fixed on the rubber floor tiles, piebald with years of traffic. My cousin Eduardo hovered beside her, arms folded, flicking glances between us and his phone. Behind the doors, my father lay across stiff white sheets, tubes crawling from his arms. The doctor's words, stroke, complicated prognosis, not yet stable, hung over us. Eduardo finally spoke. "You know what hurts more than anything? Seeing someone with so much promise waste it on whatever it is you're doing." He said it like I was running drugs for a living, not painting in cramped studios above bakeries. Mother pressed the back of her hand to her mouth. "Please, Julia, just for a few months. We have bills. God knows there's no money left for your canvases. Come home, teach. It's a stable living." The urge to scream built inside me, tight and blistering, but I swallowed it. "Painting is what I have. It's—" She cut me off. "A fantasy. This is Sao Paulo, not Paris in 1890. You're not starving for art, you're just starving." Eduardo grinned, emboldened. "Maybe you'll have a real exhibition someday. For now, we need you here." He dropped the words like ash from a cigarette, dismissive, careless. There was grief inside me, growing like mold. Not just from watching Dad shrink into his hospital gown, but from the years that had led here, years building up what little belief I had, only to be told I was a fool. I pictured my studio, a corner of a cold apartment above Rua Augusta, paint thinned with turpentine, canvases stacked high to the ceiling because no one bought them. I left that night, the words clattering after me, echoing down the corridor even as I took the bus back through city streets puddled with rain. In the mornings, I painted. I tried to capture Sao Paulo as I saw it, a city swollen with contradiction, glass towers crowding the sky beside crumbling colonial walls, beggars asleep below Dior billboards, graffiti tangling across every flat surface. I painted women who looked like me and didn't, tired, brown-skinned, beautiful, headscarved, tattooed, pregnant, old, skateboarding, laughing, weeping, all bathed in the colors of the sunset bouncing off Avenida Paulista. But the world did not want me, not at first. Every week I brought new canvases to galleries, spiraling down the rabbit hole of curators' indifference. They called my work raw, unpolished, sometimes too political. I lived off instant noodles. I'd cry on rooftop patios during power outages, comforted by the distant swell of samba. At home, my family pretended I was on vacation from real responsibility. When I visited for holidays, Eduardo joked about opening an exhibit in the parking lot. My mother whispered about government jobs, not even mentioning my father's slow decline. They loved me, but they didn't believe. It was a grief without sharp edges, dull, constant, like arthritis in my chest. I stopped expecting their approval, but their voices circled me every time I lifted a brush. I painted long into the night, sometimes by candlelight, trying to beat back the ache with each stroke. One afternoon, months after that hospital corridor, I was painting the city's skyline blotched with purple rain clouds, my phone vibrating beside me. I ignored it, telemarketing or another bill I couldn't pay, but when I checked, I saw an email subject line in English: "Inquiry, Julia Rocha Exhibition." It was from a woman named Vicky, short, clipped sentences. "Curator, Sao Paulo Contemporary Art Museum, saw your murals on Rua Mora, interested in discussing solo exhibition, late November. Are you available?" I almost deleted it, sure it was a scam. Then I Googled her name and saw her face on the museum's website, next to a list of cutting-edge shows. My knees buckled, phone pressed to my heart. I could barely type a response, hands trembling. The next months passed in a strange fever dream. I met Vicky in her office overlooking the Trianon Park. She greeted me with a handshake so firm it rattled my bones. "You have something urgent to say," she told me. "I want Sao Paulo to see it." She assigned me a gallery space, impossibly white and filled with sunlight, the walls whispering of possibility. I worked like a woman possessed, barely sleeping, scraping together money for paint, bartering finished studies for groceries, borrowing a cart from a neighbor to transport canvases across town. At the same time, my father grew weaker. I phoned home every Sunday. Sometimes he answered, voice thin and uncertain, asking how my pictures were coming along. Once, bravely optimistic, he told me, if any of your paintings ever make it, buy your mother a ticket to Rome. She's always wanted to see it. He died quietly early one morning in September. No one called to tell me at first. I saw a black rectangle on a family WhatsApp group. The next message from Eduardo simply read, he's gone. I held my phone, breathing like I was drowning, then called my mother, hearing her sob through crackled data. I went home that evening. In my old bedroom, folded beneath his heavy winter blanket, I cried until I was numb. The funeral was small, a few friends and family crowding into the tiny church off Consolaso. Eduardo hugged me briefly, and I forgave him, not with words but with the battered warmth of family, sore and unspoken. After the service, I looked around at my family, at the way they held each other up. I wanted to give them something beautiful, something that made sense of all the pain, but none of my words felt big enough. A week later, I was back in the studio, moving through the world in slow motion. Painting became an act of survival, one bright thread through the grief. Vicky sent me reminders, you owe yourself this. I painted for my father, for every time my mother called me lost, for the city that pressed into me and never let go. The night of the exhibition came in with a cold spring rain. I wore my only black dress, tangled hair pinned back. The museum buzzed with electricity and perfume, guests slipping past armed security, cameras flashing. Eduardo insisted he'd come. My mother would not. Her grief was something private, worn close to the chest. Lights spotlighted my paintings, a sweep of São Paulo's cracked sidewalks, the faces of market women, the nighttime city split by headlights and sorrow, and in the final room a portrait of my father, balding, dark-eyed, fear and pride drawn together in the careful geometry of his hands. I stood in a corner, untethered, watching and listening as strangers circled the paintings. A journalist asked me questions about political urgency in Brazilian art and the city as muse. I answered the best I could, words curling out of my chest like vapor. Eduardo arrived, face pink from the cold and from the effort of stepping into my world. He wandered, hands deep in his pockets, pausing at a mural-sized canvas splashed with the gold and blue of early morning. I watched him waiting, breath held. Finally, he came to find me. He stood in front of my father's portrait, silent, then turned to me. That's him. You got it. How he looked at you when he thought you weren't watching. I nodded, lips pressed tight. He stepped close, his face younger, suddenly open. You really did it, Julia. I didn't think, he trailed off, voice catching. I was wrong. The next day, my mother appeared at the house, carrying her purse like a shield. She refused to look at me at first, but pressed a folded newspaper into my hands. The exhibition review front page art section. The critic called my work a new eye for São Paulo's soul. My mother sat across from me, tears clotting her lashes. Your father would have been proud, she whispered. I didn't understand, not until now. We didn't hug, we didn't need to. She squeezed my hand so tightly her wedding ring left an imprint in my skin. 3 months later I returned home, not as the prodigal daughter, not triumphant, just myself, older, changed. I carried a rolled canvas under my arm. The house smelled the same, soapy floors, stale coffee on the stove, rain blown in from the margin of the window. Eduardo opened the door, eyes wide, the artist herself. There's feijoada if you're hungry. He thumped my shoulder, pretending not to sniffle at the edges. Inside, the family was gathered, my mother, my Aunt Jessica, cousins spinning through the living room. They greeted me with cautious warmth, maybe unsure how to speak to the woman they'd dismissed as a dreamer. My uncle tried a joke in poor taste. Can I get a signed painting before you get too expensive? And everyone laughed, but their eyes were bright. After dinner, I placed the rolled canvas on the table and spread it out. My fingers shook as I uncurled the edges. It was a painting of our old rooftop, the one we'd used for barbecues, birthday fireworks, and secret late-night phone calls. I painted the city spilling out beyond, skyscrapers and graffiti, the cramped rooftop chairs, a table littered with plastic cups, the faint suggestion of a band playing in the distance. In the center, I showed my father, raising a glass, smiling at something beyond the frame. Around him, the whole family, faces and limbs and memory. In the foreground, a woman who could be me or any of us, brush in hand, half in shadow, half in light. For a moment, no one spoke. My mother reached out, tracing the portrait of my father with trembling fingertips. Will you hang it? My cousin asked. Someone fetched nails and a hammer, and Eduardo climbed onto a chair. He hung the painting above the kitchen door, balancing it, the vivid shapes glowing against the white wall. Everyone circled, heads tilted, quiet. It's beautiful, my mother whispered. For the first time in years, surrounded by the mess of family grief, laughter, roast pork, and spilled wine, stories half finished, I felt the ache ease a little. I was home, not as a disappointment or a burden, but as myself, whole and unashamed. Later, as dusk poured through the windows, I crept onto the rooftop. The city spread before me, lights flickering on, thunder twisting somewhere low on the horizon. I stood alone, breathing in the smell of rain and frying onions from the neighbor's grill. My life was not what I'd imagined all those years ago, hands painted and hurting, scraping together hope inside a cheap apartment. But I had made it in the only way that mattered, by believing in what I saw and letting the city and the family see it too. Downstairs, laughter rose through the open window. Somewhere in the distance, a firework burst, orange and pink. I closed my eyes and felt the city's pulse, wild, loud, grieving, magnificent. For the first time, the dream no longer felt ridiculous. It was real and mine and home.